The Hardcore Nuzlocke is the ultimate single-player Pokemon challenge requiring resourcefulness and extensive knowledge of the game. But what if we chose the most broken game in the series for a Nuzlocke? You know, the game so buggy that a list of bugs requires several separate wiki articles to explain the glitches in detail. The game so buggy that people don't even recommend playing it anymore. The game so buggy that a glitch became a playground rumor and spread like wildfire to the point where it changed how gamers treat secrets forever. The game that, despite all of its flaws, launched largest grossing media franchise of all time. My name is Cujo, and join me on my journey to complete a hardcore Nuzlocke of every mainline Pokemon game, beginning with the one that started it all, Pokémon Red version.
If you're curious about the specific rules of a hardcore Nuzlocke, check the description down below. All the rules will be in there for your reading pleasure.
With all that out of the way, let's jump into the actual run, shall we? For Red version, I'm going to go with Charmander for my starter. Charmander gets dogged a lot for being inferior when compared to the other starters, but I think he's actually kinda good. Hell, I even made a whole video about it, which you should definitely watch, but like, not right now. Give it like an hour or so, then you can go watch it. Also, like, Charizard is on the box for Red version, so I think I'm legally required to pick him. Since Charmander is a stronger attack move than Squirtle, Roy makes quick work of Blue Squirtle, which is kind of a big deal since you can totally lose this fight pretty easily if you get unlucky with the other starters. Roy and I head out on the Route 1 and encounter a Pidgey, which will count as our catchable encounter. Unfortunately, this is before we even have Pokeballs, so we cannot catch Pidgey, and we cannot obtain a Pokemon for Route 1. It's pretty common for Nuzlocks to include a rule where the run doesn't truly begin until you obtain your first Pokeballs, so that losing to your first rival battle doesn't require a reset and your encounters on the first route or two aren't wasted. I won't be using this rule as I don't want to bloat the rule set too much, so we're just kind of out of luck on Route 1. Once we reach Viridian City, we grab Oak's parcel from the Poké Center and make the trek back to Palatown to snag our Pokédex. We also pick up the town map from Blue Sister, which is optional, but it's kind of hard to tell where one route ends and one route begins in Gen 1, so the town map will let us check our location and keep the encounter straight. Back in Viridian City, we can finally begin our journey in earnest. At the shop, we pick up a few Pokeballs and a few antidotes. In Generation 1, the Pokemart in Viridian City does not sell potions, so we have to rely on a few freebies we can find until we reach Pewter City. The antidotes will be important since the Red version Viridian Forest contains mostly Weedles who have Poison Sting, and poison Pokemon can faint in the overworld. Fortunately, Roy is a fire type, so the Weedles will have minimal opportunity to even attack us before getting torched. Before that though, we need to obtain our teammates. Heading west out of Viridian City brings us to Route 22 where we find Nidoran Male. Nidoking is one of the best Pokemon in the game since it evolves so early, and it's also a top 5 Pokemon for me personally, so I'm pretty happy for this. You might think this will make Brock easier since a Nidoran Male can learn Double Kick, but that's sort of a common misconception. Nidoran Male only learns Double Kick at a reasonable level in Pokemon Yellow. In Red and Blue versions, he has to wait until level 43. Still, Rutger will be extremely useful and hopefully be a core part of our team for a long time. Next, we head on the north of Viridian City to Route 2 and find a Rattata, which is also a great pickup. Psychic is generally considered the best type in Gen 1, but I consider Psychic and Normal to both be the best types in a 1A, 1B type situation. With Deke added to the party, we head on the Viridian Forest for our final encounter pre-Brock, which is unsurprisingly a Weedle. In other generations of Pokemon, this would be a terrible encounter, but believe it or not, Beedrill is kind of decent in Gen 1. And by decent, I mean this is like the only gen you can actually use a Beedrill. Like, don't get tricked by Potential Mod, he's not going to be carrying you in the Elite Four. I already know with Megas coming back in Legends ZA, Beedrill's going to trick a whole new generation, dude. Anyway, I don't know if it's a glitch or an intentional feature, but Bug-type attacks are super effective against Poison, and Poison is one of the most common types you encounter in Kanto. Beedrill learns Twin Needle at level 20, which is the only reliable bug attack in the entire game, letting Beedrill just slice through all of the Poison types. Marcus will take quite a bit of training though to get to that point. With the team fully assembled, we head towards Pewter City, fighting whatever wild Pokemon jump us and fighting all available trainers for experience. Roy learns Ember here, and with a super effective move in tow, we can cut through everyone relatively unscathed, only getting poisoned just once. We hit the Poké Center, heal up, and head towards Brock's gym. Brock's Onix is level 14, which means our level cap for this fight is 14. But despite soaking up the majority of experience in Viridian Forest, Roy is only level 13, while everyone else is pretty underleveled. I do grind a tiny bit since Roy was a few battles away from level 14, and I do want every advantage I can get against Brock. The trainer in Brock's gym, who is a Diglett, can be surprisingly tough thanks to his speed affecting the critical rate in Generation 1, so I opt to skip that guy since I don't want to risk getting crit to death with no counterplay. This leaves us with the big man himself, Brock. I've talked to death about this in my Charmander is good video, but Brock's rock types have no rock moves, just normal, so Charmander isn't in too much danger. Unfortunately though, Geodude just uses a single defense girl before relentlessly spamming tackle like he's in prime Brian Dawkins. Things are looking rough for the fight against Onyx, who's also tackling like his life depends on it. So I switch in Rutger just to deal whatever chip damage he can. At this point, I recognize I'm in a situation where I will have to sacrifice some of our teammates in order to survive. So I keep Rutger in at 3 HP for a couple horn attacks, but Onyx decides to screw around and just screech. Rutger's first horn attack is a critical, which actually sucks because Rutger hit several defense drops with Leer, and due to a bug, a Generation 1 critical hit ignores stat boosts. So the critical hit ended up doing less damage than a non-critical would in this situation. Rutger's next horn attack deals good damage despite Onyx's typing in huge defenses, but unfortunately, Onyx finally puts an end to Rutger. Losing Rutger does suck a lot since I like Nidoking, but while I was streaming this run, I ended up making a decision that if I'm going to a Nuzlocke every game, and I do mean every game, so red, blue, and yellow, I want to show off different Pokemon in each run instead of using the same powerhouses every time. Since Brock in yellow is almost impossible for Pikachu without Nidoran or Mankey, I decided I don't want to actually use Nidoking for this run and I'd rather save him for yellow potentially. You know, assuming I even encounter the guy. But that's just the logic I'm using to cope, honestly, because we might straight up lose here. I send in Marcus to hit a string shot, which does matter since Onyx is in a speed tie with Roy, and Roy needs to avoid hitting Onyx to turn Onyx uses Bide. I am then presented with a choice. I need to sacrifice either Deke or Marcus in order to get Roy in safely without taking a hit. I opt to sacrifice Deke since I want to show off Gen 1 Beedrill, and red version is my best opportunity for that. With Deke's sacrifice, Roy is back in the fight with just 10 HP. Here are only us clicking Ember and praying things go our way. And they actually do. Onyx uses Screech 3 times and Roy hits a few Embers, defeating Onyx and avenging Rutger and Deke. Marcus's contributions also earned him enough experience to finally evolve into Kakuta, who used to have arms before getting circumcised in Gen 2, fun fact. After collecting the Boulder Badge and the TM for Bide, which we immediately sell, we head on to the Poké Center and say our final goodbyes to Rutger and Deke. It's easy to chalk up how our battle with Brock went to bad RNG, but the reality is more grinding would have allowed Rutger and Deke and Marcus to both contribute more against Geodude and take some of the heat off of Roy so Roy is in a better shape for the showdown with Onyx. The patience leads to poor planning, which leads to death. However, the show must go on and we head on to Route 3 where we add another Pokemon to the team. But first, there are a lot of trainers in our way. Charmander has the highest damage output of the 3 starters at this point thanks to Ember having significantly higher base power than Bulbasaur or Squirtle's moves, allowing Roy to cut through these trainers with little effort. While trying to help evolve Marcus, Roy himself evolves into Charmeleon. He doesn't get any shiny new toys yet, but just bigger numbers, which we appreciate. Oh, and the worst pack sprite in the entire game.
Look at the top of his head!
After a couple more trainers, Marcus finally evolves into Beedrill, and he still sucks. Marcus won't get an actual useful attacking move until level 12, and I'm not positive Fury Attack even counts as useful. Marcus is able to take down some of the easy unevolved bugs on his own, letting Roy take a breather for the first time this run. This leads us to a patch of grass for Route 3, which we will be skipping as there is a static encounter we're interested in just a bit. We can't buy repels just yet, so I decide to fight this optional trainer instead of risking our encounter by stepping on the grass. This was a terrible decision because for level 14 Jigglypuff hits a huge sing and then just takes Roy to Pound Town, nearly killing him. I switch back to Marcus, who gets absolutely smoked by a critical pound, but manages to hang on and chip Jigglypuff with Poison Sting. Marcus can't finish the job though and falls to Jigglypuff, once again proving that Beedrill is the peak potential mon and that nobody will ever be able to show off how good it actually is. Roy comes in and finishes off Jigglypuff. I make a mental note to absolutely skip this trainer when it's time for my blue Nuzlocke and head back to the Poké Center and say goodbye to Marcus. We're down to just Roy at this point, but we can obtain our next 2 teammates. In the Route 3 Poké Center, we can buy a level 5 Magikarp for a massive $500. Magikarp evolves into literally, and I mean with this with no exaggeration, the best Nuzlocke Pokemon of all time, Gyarados. Gyarados is so broken that many Nuzlockers will skip it entirely to make it run a little more interesting. But well, we're in a bit of a dire situation here. Plus, there's a common misconception that Gyarados isn't quite as strong before the physical special split, and I just want to show off that isn't the case in Gen 1, since Gyarados has a monstrous special stat. Percival is going to take a lot of investment, but it's more of a buying Apple shares in the 80s type of investment than a buying cryptocurrency based on a random celebrity type investment. With Percival in tow, we head into Mount Moon and encounter Zubat. What else? Zubat and Golbat are just abysmal in Gen 1 and only have the terrible 20 base power leech life this early. But our team is a bit cooked, so Tate will have to pull her weight while we try to survive. Roy takes on the brunt of the work in Mount Moon with Percival leading the charge so we can switch train him up. I try to work Tate in where I can so it just to soak some of the experience away from Roy, since our current level cap is 21 for Misty's gym. Roy isn't going to make an appearance against Misty, well hopefully anyway. but Roy still needs to stay under the level cap in order to get everybody up to speed. Fortunately, Tay can handle a surprising number of trainers in Mount Moon. There's several bug catchers whose Pokemon deal little damage or none at all, and Tay can slowly chip them down. Very slowly, mind you. There's also a trainer with some grass types, which Tay can also clean up thanks to bugs 4 times effective on the grass poison dual types. The rest of Mount Moon is relatively uneventful. The only notable things we pick up is the Mega Punch TM, which I decided to not use on Roy, and I skipped the infamous Rocket Grum with a level 16 Hyper Fang spam Eradicate. I am trying to do these runs with 0 documentation so that I don't know what's coming ahead, but I do know Gen 1 pretty well, so I am aware of this guy. Oh yeah, we grabbed the Helix fossil because Omastar is sassy as all hell in Gen 1. After making it through Mount Moon, Roy is level 19, Percival is level 10, and Tate is level 11. Roy is at a solid level for the upcoming rival battle, but Percival and Tate aren't going to do much. Neither will Walt the Ekans, who joins us at just level 6. Speaking of the rival battle, I do make the foolish decision and still lead with Percival against Blue's dummy thick Pidgeotto, but Roy hits a fat Ember crit and a burn proc, so I'm rewarded for being stupid. The burn is huge since it shaves off a lot of incoming damage from the Pidgeotto, but despite that, we still head into the Abra at about half health. Here, I just swap the Percival for experience and swap back to Tate for the kill. Tate lands a Supersonic on Rattata, but then we have to swap in Roy to finish the job. Rattata does not hit itself in confusion a single time and could have potentially killed Roy here, but we got really lucky. Last up is Squirtle, who hard counters our only actually good Pokemon. I swap in Walt for an attempt to literally do anything to Squirtle, but Walt quickly goes down after a couple attacks. Next up is a real Hail Mary play of trying to land a Supersonic and some confusion procs to cheese out Squirtle, but Tate is outspent and killed with a Water Gun. This leaves us with a severely wounded Roy against Squirtle. Squirtle lands a bubble for 11 damage, meaning a crit would have taken down Roy, but Roy perseveres as he tries to scratch down Squirtle. Second scratch and Squirtle misses a Tail Whip, third scratch and Squirtle lands a critical tackle, but Roy survives with just 2 HP. With the fourth and final scratch, Roy barely ekes out a win thanks to the absolute terrible AI in Gen 1 and Blue just forgetting he has a bubble. Roy is truly a blessed Pokemon, man. It's 2 times now he barely ekes out a win thanks to purely the luck. Dude must be holding a 4-leaf clover or like a lucky Bruneri's foot or something, man. Squirtle and Bulbasaur may have better typings, but Charmander has got the higher luck stat. With Blue defeated, we're presented with another problem. Roy is now 1 level away from the level cap, and we have to make it across Nugget Bridge. Percival is still a lowly Magikarp, so he can't help, but we still have to soak as much experience away from Roy as possible. Which is actually kind of easy because Roy's the luckiest Pokemon ever, and all of the trainers in Nugget Bridge have crappy Pokemon, letting Percival switch out on nearly every single one with minimal danger. After defeating the 4th trainer, Roy reaches the level cap of 21, and it seems like our run is dead in the water. However, you can still use Pokemon at the level cap, you just can't exceed it. This gives us an additional 1086 experience to work with before Roy has to be benched until after Misty. Thank God Roy is high level, honestly, because this dude's level 18 Mankey is kind of scary, man. A legit almost kills Roy in a straight up 1v1. Watch out for that guy. With Nugget Bridge cleared, we can make our way to the nearby grass and snag Clarine the Oddish. Oddish is an underrated Pokemon in Gen 1 in my opinion. It learns Sleep Powder extremely early and has a mixed bulk to switch in, hit a sleep, and switch out to your sweeper. Over on Route 25, we encounter Abra, who is legit the best Pokemon in the game, if you can catch one. While Misty is available to fight as soon as you reach Cerulean City, the current plan is to make our way to Bill's house in order to move the cop blocking the house and open up the path to Vermilion City, and there's several available encounters. Clarine can absolutely solo Misty after a few levels, as can Percival once he evolves, but we've learned several times so far, having backup plans is a pretty good idea. Clarine quickly proves her worth against the hikers on Route 25 that have rock types, but still needs a bit of a help from Roy in order to take down everybody else. Roy does reach level 22 against the final mandatory trainer before Bill's house, which does open the path towards Vermilion City, but Roy has to be placed in the box until after Misty's defeated, and Clarine can't defeat the Rocket Grunt's Drowsy, so we're left with one choice. The 2 trainers in here obviously have water Pokemon, so Clarine can make short work of them in order to eke out a bit more experience before we have to grind or battle Misty. The last trainer before Misty is a Goldeen with the flying type Peck, so I decided to grind it just a bit to get another level, which takes like 20 minutes by the way. This is not Clarine's strong suit. I then used both of the rare candies I've found so far in Clarine, so she evolves at level 20. Did you guys know Oddish does not evolve at level 20? Yeah, I just found out the hard way. Grinding at this point would be torture, so I just head into Misty's gym and easily handle the Goldeen in 3 absorbs, and then move on to Misty herself. Clarine learns Sleep Powder at level 19, which is one of the best moves in the game. Generation 1 sleep lasts 1 to 7 turns and the slept target cannot act the turn that they wake up. Despite being underleveled, Clarine can just sweep both Starmie and Staryu and click Absorb until we win the Cascade badge. For her efforts, Clarion is rewarded with an evolution into Gloom, and Misty gives us the TM for Bubble Beam, which will hang on for Percival when he evolves. Now that Misty is defeated, our level cap rises to level 24 until we defeat Lieutenant Surge, which is a little too close for my taste, but we have a few upcoming encounters to spread the experience around. Wait, am I forgetting something? Oh yeah, Roy, we should probably pick him back up. We'll need him for the Rocket Grunt's pretty scary Drowsy. This guy has Confusion for big damage and the Confuse chance, and Hypnosis to put your guys to sleep, which he does manage to land on Roy. Roy is basically out of commission, so we have to go to Clarion, who tanks a super effective critical Confusion on the switch-in. Fortunately, she lands a risky Sleep Powder and is able to slowly chip Drowsy down with Absorb. The Rocket Grunt gives us the TM for Dig, which is one of the strongest moves in Generation 1, sporting 100 base power and 100 accuracy. Also, it's super effective against Lieutenant Surge's gym, which is up next. I teach Dig to Roy, who's going to be a designated Lieutenant Surge counter. I could grab the Diglett from Diglett Cave, but truth be told, I am afraid of running into one of the really high-level Dugtrios and just getting destroyed. On the way to the underground path, we pick up Gonzalez the Mankey and make our way towards Vermilion City. Fighting is pretty awful in Gen 1, so we'll probably won't see Primate this run, but who knows, he might make an appearance in Yellow version. Fia the Pidgey joins us down on Route 6 as we make our way into Vermilion City. After healing up in Vermilion City, we head east out of town and we counter Sophia the Spearow. Spearow is pretty good in Gen 1, but I have a different plan for Sophia. We didn't obtain an encounter for Vermilion City itself, so we can actually trade Sophia to a little girl for her Farfetch'd. Farfetch'd is generally panned as one of the worst Pokemon in the game, but I think it's genuinely super underrated. Farfetch'd is a bit similar to Charizard, and they both benefit heavily from certain quirks of Gen 1, but we'll get to that much later. For now, Dux isn't fantastic, but since he is a traded Pokemon, he does gain boosted experience, allowing him to keep up with everybody else. Okay, we finally have a full team of 6 for the first time this run. I'm sure our workhorses are tired at this point, so let's just get everybody else up to par. We start this process by battling some of the trainers on Route 11, and quickly it's obvious that we're still really relying on Roy, and to a lesser extent Clarion, to get anything done. Roy is one level off from the level cap, and we actually do need him this time, so I decided to tackle the SSN and obtain Cut, which is required for the Vermilion City gym. By the way, can I talk about this line real quick? Something about this line just kills me, dude. Flashing the ticket sounds like the cockiest possible way of describing showing off the ticket. It's like the only breadcrumb of personality we get out of Red for like a billion years. Anyway, on the SSN, we have 3 goals. Obtain the HM for Cut, and obtain the HM for Body Slam, and get as much experience as humanly possible into Percival. Body Slam is one of the best moves in the game, setting 85 base power, 100 accuracy, and has a 30% chance to inflict paralysis. Body Slam is normal, so it hits nearly every Pokemon in the game for neutral damage, and most importantly, nearly every Pokemon in the game can learn it. Who you use Body Slam on ends up being one of the most critical choices in a Nuzlocke, as you're effectively committing that Pokemon to the team almost permanently. I decided to save Body Slam for Percival's evolution into Gyarados in an effort to make him immediately a powerhouse. Next on the docket is obtaining Cut, which requires another rival battle. Blue leads with Pidgeotto yet again, but this time Clarion can come in and put it to sleep. Gust is normal type in Generation 1, so Clarion isn't in any real danger here. Roy switches in on the sleeping Pidgeotto and takes him down quickly thanks to an Ember Crypt. Raticate is up next. Clarion switches in, eating a huge Hyper Fang in the process, but puts Raticate to sleep and chips him down. Once Raticate is low, I switch Percival in to soak up some experience and Raticate wakes up. This would be terrifying any other generation, but remember, in Generation 1, Pokemon cannot act the turn they wake up. As long as you see these 3 funny little letters on your opponent's Pokemon, you're totally safe to switch. Once Clarion comes back in and finishes off Raticate, Blue sends out his scariest Pokemon, Kadabra. Gen 1 and Alakazam, and by extension Kadabra, are notorious for being absolutely overpowered, and it's definitely true. Roy hits a huge critical Confusion after switching in, but outspeeds Kadabra due to the level advantage and kills it with a single dig. Last is Wartortle, who obviously can't do anything to Clarion. We can head upstairs and obtain the HM for Cut, but if we do that, the SSN will depart when we leave the heal at the Poké Center. Instead, I decided to hit up some of the trainers to squeeze as much experience and money out of this place as possible. Roy is still a level off from the level cap, so we still have a solid amount of wiggle room if he needs to tag in. Dux manages to score a few wins of his own here thanks to Clarion putting up a sleep. Dux hits a few sand attacks followed by a Leer, and then Growlithe gets smoked by a Fury attack. Dux's second Fury attack crits, and this brings us another Gen 1 quirk. If the first hit of a multi-attack move crits, all following hits will also crit. It's kinda crazy, honestly. These moves end up being insane in these situations. Once we clear out the SSN, I decide to risk the Diglett Cave encounter, but we do just meet Alan the Diglett. Alan joins the team in place of Gonzalez, since the ground type will be more beneficial against Surge. Speaking of Surge, Dux cuts down the tree outside of the Vermilion City gym and we head in to face him. I kind of hate this puzzle inside of this gym. I know the two switches will always be directly next to each other, but I just feel like I always get really bad luck with them. I imagine speedrunners must hate this part too. After a few minutes though, I do find the switches and we face Surge himself. Roy leads off the battle one-shotting Voltorb with Dig and Pikachu with another Dig. Roy levels up to 25 after killing Pikachu, which is above the level cap, but since we're in the middle of the battle, it's still legal to use him, and the level cap will increase after we defeat Surge. This is a common strategy in Nuzlocke called edging, and yes, I think about that edging every time too. I think there probably should have been a little more time workshopping this term, but hey. Last up is Surge's Raichu, who does outspeed Roy despite the level advantage. Raichu hits a huge Thunderbolt for 40 damage, and which absolutely would have one-shot Roy if it had critted. But Roy is the luckiest little man to never exist, so I'm not punished for being stupid. Next turn, Surge uses an exit speed on Raichu, which is kind of what I expected on turn 1, honestly. Realistically, the odds of Raichu actually using Thunderbolt and scoring a critical are pretty low since he likes to do stupid stuff. Roy picks up the one-shot with Dig and we score the Thunder Badge and the absolutely insane TM for Thunderbolt. A 95 base power move is just unreal at this point in the game, so whoever gets this TM is going to be insane. The Thunder Badge also enables the badge boost for defense, not speed like Lieutenant Surge says. Another bug, what a shocker. Anyway, we'll talk more about badge boosts later, just know that they're basically a stat increase for the appropriate stat. Since Surge is defeated, our level cap rises to level 29, which is also still very close. And we do have quite a way until we face Erika in Celadon City, but first we actually have to head back to Cerulean. On the way back, I fight a bug catcher I skipped earlier with a level 20 Butterfree, and this guy's no joke, good lord. It puts nearly the entire team to sleep, chunks everybody with confusion, and puts down Thea with a critical. Dux managed to weave in a couple sand attacks during his time in the fight, and we're really banking on those bailing us out. I try to have the speedy Alan finish the job, but he misses the 100 accuracy scratch, which due to a funny little glitch, every move in Gen 1 has a 1 in 256 chance of missing. Because of this glitch, Alan also falls to the Butterfree. Roy is still snoozing when he comes back in, but we have no alternatives. He takes 2 confusions on the chin and the third finally actually misses thanks to Dux's sand attacks, and Roy wakes up and we can finish the job. Do not fight this traitor, man. Good God. We turn back, head to the Poké Center, and say goodbye to Thea and Alan while Gonzalez rejoins the team. With only a team of 5, again, we clear out the rest of the trainers on Route 6 and head back to the Route 11 and clear those trainers. After a while, Percival reaches level 19 and I shove a rare candy down his throat, evolving him into Gyarados, who we desperately need with how his team is looking. I immediately teach him Body Slam and Bubble Beam, so he's already a force to be reckoned with. I let Percival just run rampant over the rest of the trainers on the Route 11 and he annihilates them all with 0 effort. Except the Magnemites. I don't know if they have Thunder Shock, but I'm not risking it. Also, like, there's just a guy with a level 18 Magneton here. Magnemite doesn't evolve until level 30, so I don't know what Game Freak is cooking with this one. They love illegal level Pokemon in Gen 1, bro. Oh, also, I found an escape rope hanging in a lone tree. I don't know what Game Freak meant by that one, but that sounds like something like 400 really crappy creepypastas would be based on. Before heading back to Cerulean City and actually continuing our journey, I head through the Diglett Cave in order to obtain the HM for Flash on the other side. Flash isn't actually a mandatory, but Rock Tunnel is complete darkness. Sounds like a miserable viewing experience for you guys, so I ain't gonna do that one. I do end up running into the super high level Dugtrio I was afraid of also, but fortunately Percival can handle it easily at this point. Alright, back to Cerulean City, we pick up the bike, cut down the tree, head on the Route 9. There are lots of trainers here, and we pretty much let Percival take care of all of them so he can catch up to Roy and Clarion. Dux takes on any of the grass or bug types we run into since he has a super effective peck. The route goes off without a hitch until we run into a hiker whose Geodude uses self-destruct. Yeah, we're at that stage of the game where we have to worry about self-destruct, just one-shotting a Pokemon every time we see a Geodude or Voltorb. Keep in mind self-destruct and explosion are extra scary in the earlier gens, since they also cut your defense in half for the damage calculation. Clarion is probably our tankiest Pokemon, and she would have absolutely gotten smoked by a critical, so thankfully we got lucky. At the end of the route we encounter Noah the Voltorb, who immediately joins the team thanks to our open slot. I could give him the Thunderbolt TM, but I have a user later in mind, and I'm just not sure how good Electrode will actually be long term. Inside Rock Tunnel, we also pick up Geese the Machop, who will be riding the bench forever because fighting types suck. Plus, we can't really trade to evolve them anyway. Rock Tunnel can't really stand up to her Firewater Grass core of Roy, Percival, and Clarion, and we blitz through everybody. The Geodude line is still scary though, since self-destruct is an ever-looming threat that can just one-shot one of our Pokemon, so we try to take them down ASAP. Fortunately, we make it through Rock Tunnel unscathed and on to Lavender Town. There isn't much to do here at the moment, so we head west on the Route 8 where we encounter a Growlithe, who roars Percival away and we lose the encounter. Neat. I mean, we have Roy, so like we weren't going to use Growlithe, but we do pick up another Growlithe on Route 7 though, and we name him Douglas. In Celadon City, we head to the department store and buy a Leaf Stone for Clarine, finally evolving her into Vileplume. Back in Gen 1, Pokemon didn't learn anything after evolving via stones, but Gloom learned all the good stuff already, so there's no downside to evolving to Vileplume here. I got up onto the roof and pick up some beverages for the little girl who will exchange them for the TMs for Ice Beam, Tri Attack, and Rock Slide. Ice Beam is crazy strong and I slap it onto Percival, which is actually a pretty good choice thanks to its huge special stat in Gen 1. With the shopping done and the level cap fast approaching, it's time to take on Erica. Roy surprisingly doesn't fare too well against the trainers in her gym. Ember just can't one-shot anything and sometimes needs 3 hits to kill despite the type effectiveness. This leaves Roy open to being status wrapped and just genuinely cheesed to death. He still wins these battles, but we have to heal after almost every single one. Once Roy reaches level cap, I'll let Percival take over and he just shreds everybody with Ice Beam, which is probably a clear sign of who we should use against Erica, but I am stupid and ignore all signs. Before we fight Erica, I come up with an esoteric strategy, but probably is cooking way too hard. I fly back to Viridian City thanks to the Fly HM available right outside of Celadon, and head into Viridian Forest where I let a Weedle poison Roy. I figure Erica's Pokemon probably have Stun Spore and Slate Powder, so heading into the fight already status will prevent Roy from getting shot down by one of those statuses. However, against Erica, Roy does such pitiful damage that we're going to need several Embers in order to kill Victory Bell. The poison ends up biting us in the ass when Roy gets wrapped and I just have to switch, otherwise he'll take both poison and wrap damage each turn. Fortunately, Roy did land a burn, so Victory Bell slowly burns to death as I continuously switch Pokemon in order to get out of wrap. Dux almost cooks and sneaks in a Swords Dance while Erica uses a potion, but he's just too slow and gets wrapped and has to switch. Eventually I swap in Noah, who hits a Flash in a desperate attempt to actually make this guy miss the already inaccurate wrap, but he dies to a single Razor Leaf. This does let Roy come back in for free and finish Victory Bell off after she finally misses a wrap. Tangle is next and hits a Constrict on Roy, which I thought was the partial trapping move like bind and wrap, but it's not. So I just switched to Percival, who actually does get binded. Once he's free though, he just nukes Tangle with a single Ice Beam. Erica's second ace, Vileplume, is last and takes a huge chunk from Ice Beam and luckily misses Sleep Powder after, letting Percival end the battle on the next turn. So yeah, a bit of a poor performance from Roy, especially considering the tight matchups, but Gen 1's weird like that, you know? Sometimes you gotta use Ember until level 46 because the learn sets are total ass. Before we take care of the Rocket Hideout, I decided to go obtain my encounter for Celadon City. If we head up the back entrance of this building and run up several flights of stairs, we can just steal an Eevee off a table. That's right, nobody just gives it to you, you just steal the damn thing. Maybe we did take that guy on Nugget Bridge up on his offer and join Team Rocket. We take Juno over to the department store, rub a Thunderstone on its forehead, evolving into Jolteon. Jolteon is kind of insane in Gen 1 since it's the second fastest Pokemon in the game, and has an incredibly high special on top. Juno will be the recipient of the Thunderbolt TM that Lieutenant Surge gave us a while ago because Jolteon doesn't actually learn it naturally and needs the TM. Interesting choice there, Game Freak, I'm not gonna lie. Also decided to swap Gonzalez out for Douglas, who I immediately evolved with a Firestone. Douglas won't be around for the long term, but the boosted evolution stats should allow him to be a solid stopgap for a while. With Erica defeated, our level cap skyrockets all the way to level 43, which will actually apply for both Koga and Sabrina as their aces are at the same level. Koga will be first on their list since his badge provides the badge boost for speed. We might need that to outspeed Sabrina's Alakazam. Before that though, we have to tackle the Rocket Hideout and obtain the Sylph Scope. The Rocket Hideout is really easy, it's more of the standard Rocket Grunt affair. You got your Eradicates, your Zubats, your Coughings, you know the drill. There's no interesting loot here other than the necessary card key which you get from talking to a Rocket Grunt after defeating him. Just a strange decision from Game Freak, honestly. If you got stuck here for hours, I wouldn't blame you, honestly. Against Giovanni, Percival shows, oh my god, dude, what is that animation? After nearly cosplaying Porygon, Percival takes down Giovanni's Kangaskhan in 2 hits, winning us the Sylph Scope. The Sylph Scope lets us actually see the ghost types over in Labrador's Pokemon Tower, but first, we have another battle with our rival, Blue. Juno takes down Pidgeotto in 1 hit along with Blue's new Growlithe. Rounding out Blue's own Fire Water Grass core is his Execute, who gets decimated by a critical Thunderbolt. Not even Kadabra and his huge special can stand up to Juno, and of course, the Water-type Wartortle can't either. Up in the tower proper, we catch Nime the Ghastly. Pokemon Tower is kind of the most boring part of the game, honestly. Literally the only thing you run in here are Ghastlies or Haunters. The final floor does feature a level 30 Marowak though, whose ground type attacks are avoided by Gyarados. There are also a few Rocket Grunts up top, but you can't guess what Pokemon they have. Dux reaches level 31 and learns Agility. Farfetch is one of 2 Pokemon who can learn both Swords Dance and Agility naturally, making him the setup god. Even crap stats like that are insane when you click Swords Dance 3 times. Clarine's Sleep Powder and the Gen 1 sleep mechanics are the perfect partner for Dux to set up for free and begin sweeping Rocket Grunts with ease. For our efforts, we were given the Poke Flute, letting us finally clear the path towards Fuchsia City. Before we head out though, do stop at the Poke Center and swap Douglas out for Nime. Due to Nime's ghost typings, she'll be completely immune to the insanely common normal type moves, including the really threatening Self-Destruct and Explosion. I decided to take Route 12 south out of Lavender Town, play a little jingle for the sleepy big guy, and catch Snorlax. Wade would be like the best Pokemon in the game, but I don't really want to use 2 absolute powerhouses like Gyarados and Snorlax in the same run. I'd rather keep it a little interesting, you know? Continuing along Route 12, we can immediately see Nime's value against this guy with a couple Voltorbs. A ton of the trainer's Pokemon only have normal attacks, just like this Electrode, so they have literally no way of dealing damage to Nime. You can just take your time and spam Nightshade for free wins. Further south, I checked the town map and it looks like we've reached Route 13, meaning a new encounter is available. I decided to use our shiny new Super Rod and fish up a Tentacle, who I just killed with a Nightshade. Whoops. A little after, Roy reaches level 33 and learns Slash, which is one of the best moves in the game. I don't know if it's a bug or intentional or what, but in Gen 1, any move with an increased critical chance such as Slash is basically a 100% chance to crit. I'm gonna go ahead and file this one under Quirk and not Bug. Roy suddenly spikes in strength and just destroys everything in his sight in 1 to 2 hits. The only scary guy Roy runs into is his Fira with a Mirror move who ends up hitting us with a stab critical slash of his own. I do get a little afraid and just let Juno finish the job. Even further south is yet another route where we add Ellen the Venonat to the squad. Here I just bucket the Fuchsia and top off our Pokemon as our PP is pretty low after the 3 route gauntlet. While we're in Fuchsia City, we might as well do the Safari Zone content and stack the HMs for Surf and Strength. I kind of always hated the Safari Zone. Something about the limited steps always made me super anxious as a kid, and even to this day I still have that subconscious anxiety because of it. Also, catching Pokemon in here is just impossible, I swear. Embarrassingly, it does take me a couple of tries to actually reach the end and obtain the gold teeth in the Surf TM, which Percival is immediately taught. We may have wasted our Safari Zone encounter, but the town map lists Safari Zone as a separate location from Fuchsia City, meaning we can obtain a fishing Pokemon from a little pool in some guy's backyard. But it's a Goldeen, so it might as well count as a wasted encounter also. I head west out of Fuchsia City and make my way towards Cycling Road, but I do stop in this tiny patch of grass to catch a Doduo. I actually make an intelligent decision for the first time this run and fly to Celadon so I can actually just go downhill on Cycling Road as opposed to fighting uphill like a total psychopath. There is another encounter available on Route 16, but I'm pretty sure it's all Pokemon we've already caught, and a quick Google search confirms it, meaning no new friends for us. Percival crushes the second Snorlax, and Roy begins digging all the poison types on Cycling Road, with Nime occasionally getting in on the action. After a few trainers, Roy finally reaches level 36 and evolves into Charizard. Oh. Not the best of Charizards ever looked, that's for sure, but he's still like the coolest thing ever when you're like 6, right? Sick back sprite though, I'll give it up for that. I let Roy take a break from slaughtering everything and Nime takes over, eventually evolving into Haunter herself. We can't evolve her again, but Haunter is still pretty cracked. Upon her evolution, I decided to make my way to Saffron City and grab the TM for Psychic off of Mr. Psychic. Nime will be our bootleg Psychic Pokemon since we got unlucky and never encountered a true Psychic type. Nime immediately puts the newly learned Psychic to good use by completely walling and annihilating the fighting dojo completely solo despite the huge level difference. The dojo master does offer us a Hitmonlee or Hitmonchan as a reward, but since both the fighting dojo and Silphco building count as Saffron City in Gen 1, I turned down both of them and saved my encounter slot for Lapras. The Silphco building is our next major dungeon for us, and I let Roy take charge here. The level cap is 43 for both Sabrina and Koga, and Roy is going to be on Alakazam duty, so he needs to reach the level cap for sure. Once Roy reaches level 40, I do take the foot off the gas and let everybody else get in the mix and gain some experience though. The trainers here are pretty easy. The scariest thing you encounter are the self-destructing Electrodes, but thankfully we have Nime to handle them. The Silphco building houses 2 excellent TMs, Swords Dance and Earthquake. We don't have any good candidates for Earthquake, but Roy immediately learned Swords Dance, and now I think it's the time to talk about badge boosts. As I mentioned earlier, certain badge boost stats by 12.5%. Boulder badge for attack, Thunder badge for defense, and Soul badge for speed, and the Volcano badge for special. You might want to sit down for this one because it's going to be some really shocking information that I don't think mortal minds are ready to comprehend just yet. There is a bug in Gen 1 involving these boosts. If your Pokemon is affected by a stat drop or a stat increase, say for example, it uses Swords Dance, the badge boosts are applied an additional time, and it keeps stacking. Our plan is to tackle Koga before Sabrina in order to grab the Soul Badge to enable the badge boost for speed, and after a few Swords Dance and the badge boost glitch applying several times, Roy will be able to easily outspeed Sabrina's Alakazam in one shot. This glitch is why I unironically think Farfetch'd is underrated. Having both Swords Dance and Agility lets them boost into the stratosphere and actually sweep things. Speaking of boosts into the stratosphere, I'm going to run a truly psychopathic strategy on Roy. I leave the Silphco building and make our way to the Celadon City Game Corner and spend 10 solid minutes real-time trading money for coins so that we can buy the Hyper Beam TM. Hyper Beam has a funny little quirk in Gen 1 where if it knocks out the Pokemon, your Pokemon won't have to spend a turn recharging. Hyper Beam is also physical in Gen 1 since this is before the physical special split. Roy is going to Swords Dance to the moon and rattle off Hyper Beam after Hyper Beam after Hyper Beam. This current coverage, I think the only Pokemon that could actually wall him is Lance's Aerodactyl, but that's an issue for later. Roy immediately shows off the strategy against the rival battle in Silphco. Nime puts Blue's Pidgeot to sleep, letting Roy come in for free, Swords Dance 3 times, and begin the Hyper Beam spam. Pidgeot goes down, then Growlithe, Execute, Alakazam, and Blast. Oh crap. Remember earlier when I said moves in Gen 1 ignore stat boosts if they crit? Yeah, this is a big risk with this strategy. If Roy crits on a Hyper Beam, it'll ignore all 3 Swords Dance, and he probably won't kill certain Pokemon, and have to recharge. Honestly, Hyper Beam is probably just total overkill for this playthrough, and Roy can get away with just digging Swords Dance. But Gen 1 Hyper Beam gives me lots of dopamine, so I'm gonna continue to roll the dice. Roy is a lucky boy after all, so it fits him well. Because of the crit, Roy takes 2 Water Guns from Blastoise, but manages to survive, then finishes the battle with a dig. After defeating our rival again, we added Lina the Lapras to our box and continue on the Giovanni, who gets put in the dirt by Percival and Nime, basically walling all of his Pokemon. That's pretty much everything out of the way so we can finally move on to the Poison Gym. Walk right up to the first trainer and, This is Koga's gym, right? Okay, what about the next trainer? Am I playing a randomizer? Like, what is going on here? Alright, surely the third guy in the Poison Gym has Poison types. Nope, we have to wait until the 4th trainer to fight a Poison type in his Poison Gym. What is happening here? I was ready for Nime to just roll this place with Psychic, but I guess Koga was 12 steps ahead of me. Also, like, the 4th guy has a Sand Slash. I guess it tracks, but like, what are we doing here, honestly? After fighting literally more Psychic Pokemon than Poison, we make it to Koga, who just can't stand up to Nime's Psychic Onslaught, despite being under the level cap and unevolved. Koga gives us a Soul Badge, which enables a badge boost for speed, and the TM for my favorite move as a stall enjoyer, Toxic. Up next is Sabrina's gym, where Roy makes quick work of all of the trainers. Against Sabrina herself, I lead off with Juno to go for a Thunder Wave and set up some Sand attacks to give Roy a chance to set up. But Kadabra manages to disable Sand attack twice, stopping her plan in its tracks. I just let Juno take down Kadabra and then put the plan in motion against Mr. Mime. Once Mr. Mime is buried in the sand, Roy comes in, Swords Dances 3 times, and crit Hyper Beams Mr. Mime for the kill. Venomoth, my favorite Psychic type, is up next and we miss the Hyper Beam, but Venomoth kinda sucks, so nothing really happens and we can hit a second one. Last but not least is Alakazam, and thanks to the badge boost and the badge boost glitch, Roy outspeeds Alakazam and one-shots him with a Hyper Beam. With 6 badges out of the way, we can now surf our way down to Cinnabar Island to face Blaine. Before that though are a relentless amount of completely uninteresting featureless water routes, where every trainer has just the same 4 Pokemon. I'm just gonna fast forward this part, like just know that shockingly our grass type and our electric type are pretty good here. Eventually we make it to Seafoam Islands, which I'm absolutely dreading. I vividly remember playing blue version as a kid and getting totally lost in here for days, and finding Articuno was like legitimately impossible for me. Fortunately though, I was a stupid kid, and at Seafoam Islands is a total joke. We pick up Green the Horsey, and do a few simple strength puzzles to reach Articuno. I can't catch Articuno since we already picked up Green here, but who said anything about catching? Cool legendary bird, bro. After exiting Seafoam, we get a nearly identical water route as the one before, but this one at least has platforms with non-water type trainers to break up the monotony. Cool innovation, I guess, but like still the most uninteresting section of Gen 1 though. After finally reaching Cinnabar Island, I head to the PC and grab our Lord and Savior, the Helix Fossil, and headed off to the scientist to grab Yoder, the Omanite. Checking the town map shows us that the Pokemon Mansion located on Cinnabar is not a separate location like it is in the Gen 3 remakes, so we are limited to just Yoder as our encounter here. Speaking of the Pokemon Mansion, Percival leads its way absolutely crushing everything in here with Stab Surf off of a 100 special stat. Pokemon Mansion has always been kind of annoying to me, but I do kind of like the little lore drops about how they created Mewtwo, and I'm really jazzed about how strong it is. I just don't tell these guys about Geomancy Xerneas, or Miraidon, or Calyrex Riders, or Urshifu, or like, even Sneasler. Pour one out for my boy Mewtwo, you just don't do nothing anymore. Did you guys know that Mew is Guyanese? Anyway, we keep trucking through, grab the TM for Blizzard, and the secret key we need to enter Cinnabar Gym. I didn't teach anyone Blizzard just yet, but I want to point out how stupidly stacked this move in Gen 1 was. 120 base power, 90% accuracy, 10% chance to freeze, which is permanent in Gen 1. Weather doesn't exist yet, so you don't have to worry about that affecting the accuracy at all. Over in the Cinnabar Island Gym, there's a dumb little quiz that will let you avoid the trainers if you get it correct, but I just kind of fight everybody for the experience. Unsurprisingly, Vulpixes and Growlithes can't stand up to a Gyarados and a Charizard. Against the big man himself, I let Roy lead off in Swords Dance a couple times, and then for some reason, Blaine uses a super potion at full HP. Anyway, Roy just digs every Pokemon and one-shots them all in the process. Easiest gym of all time. Before we move on to the final gym, I decided to clean up all the optional experience we have laying around. Similar to the previous water routes, I let Clarion and Juno clear the route between Palatine and Cinnabar Island before flying north to Cerulean City and making our way towards the power plant. Lou the Pikachu joins us as Nime takes the lead here since it can't be self-destructed on by all the fake Voltorbs and Electrodes poisoning his items. Eventually we encounter Zapdos, who we just take down just like we did in Articuno, although he does put up a better fight. With all that out of the way, we can move on to the 8th and final gym. The Vermilion City gym is kinda weird. All the trainers here use a mix of different types, normal, ground, fighting, poison, you name it. I'll let everybody get involved here, especially since the level cap is just 2 levels above what it was for Blaine. Against the gym leader Giovanni, it's up to Roy to bring him back down to earth. With an assist from Clarion, Roy sets up Swords Dance and just rips through all of his Pokemon with ease. I don't think the sleep was ever necessary here because Giovanni has 0 rock attacks on his rock Pokemon, but it's better safe than sorry, right? I always felt this gym was kind of disappointing as the final gym, honestly. Like, Giovanni being revealed as the final gym leader is really, really sick, but his team is just so easy. Like, you just did 5 surfing rounds, so you definitely have a dedicated surf user just to rip him apart. He just pales in comparison to later gen final gym leaders. Our team is firing on all cylinders at this point, and there aren't really many ways of gaining experience outside of Victory Road, so let's make our way to the Pokemon League. Before that though, we're stopped by our rival yet again for another easy fight. This goes down just like the last one. We set up on Pidgeot, then a Hyper Beam for Pidgeot, a dig for Rhydon, another dig for Growlithe, Flamethrower for Execute, then a missed Hyper Beam against the best Pokemon in the game, Alakazam. Oh god. Roy lucks out though, and Alakazam just sets up Reflect before going down to dig. Lastly, Blastoise comes in and Roy's luck finally runs out. Damn, man. I knew Hyper Beam would bite us in the ass at some point, but I didn't think it would happen against literally the worst possible Pokemon for Roy to recharge against. After Juno revenges Roy, we head back to the PC and say goodbye to our boy Roy. Roy was going to be our main sweeper for the final showdown with the champion, so we're going to have to pivot a little bit. I grab Wade out of the box and give him Rock Slide and Earthquake and head off to the Pokemon League. I always thought this whole system with a guard stopping you for each badge was kind of cool, but what is going on with the swimming ones, bro? Like, do they get paid more? I'd be pissed if I had to sit in the pool 24/7. Wade is pretty low level at this point, so I'm going to let him lead the way in Victory Road for the experience, but I quickly realized there's a problem. A very big, explosive problem. Almost all of our levels are in Roy, and we're low-key getting out-leveled by trainers now. But thankfully, the AI is still bad. After some exploring, I ran into a juggler with a few psychic Pokemon. I think this is a great time to show off how strong Snorlax's Amnesia is. Amnesia is probably the best move in Gen 1 since Special Defense and Special Attack are combined into a singular stat, and Amnesia boosts Special by 2 stages. After a couple of Amnesias, I feel like Wei can handle these guys pretty easily thanks to the boosts, but a Kadabra hits a critical Psy Beam, taking him down. At this point, I'm thinking the run might be over, honestly. We're just choking away all of our good Pokemon, and most importantly, all of the good TMs. Since Roy had Dig and Wade had Earthquake, we now have no access to a ground attack, which is huge for fighting Agatha's poison types. Also, because I was so used to having Dig, I don't have any escape ropes, so I just have to walk my way out and fly back to Vermilion City to release Wade. I do think our best option at this point is Yoder. We already have a water type in Percival, but Yoder's rock water typing provides crazy defensive utility, and Omastar just has crazy stats. I decided to give Yoder our Blizzard TM and teach him Surf, and he's pretty much set on moves. The other two really don't matter much. With Yoder in the team, I decided a bit of grinding would be the safest option. I can't really afford another Wade situation, so I head into Pokemon Mansion and begin grinding up against all the fire and poison types. After quite a while, I do give up on grinding because, well, it's boring. I head back to Victory Road well underleveled. Victory Road is much easier this time with the newly evolved Yoder shredding everything in its path. We make it through unscathed, gank Moltres real fast, and prepare for the Elite Four. The champion's ace is level 65, and honestly, going to Elite Four at that level is just way too easy. I think Lorelai's ace level of 56 is a much more reasonable challenge. That said, we're still significantly underleveled, but it's fun. It's going to be more interesting, so let's get to it. The Ice Elite Four member, Lorelai, is mostly water types, so Juno takes the lead here. She cuts through Dugong and Cloyster quickly, and then in comes Slowbro. I know Slowbro can't do anything to Juno, so I take this opportunity to use Agility a few times to enable the badge boost glitch, to pump our special. Slowbro helps the cause by hitting us with a few growls to enable the glitch even more. Juno can't quite kill Lorelai's Jinx and Lapras in one hit, but the AI can retroactively decide to use super potions if their Pokemon take damage, so we can just finish them off with a second Thunderbolt. Pretty easy sweep, all things considered. Bruno has a weird mix of fighting types and Onyxes, so Clarine starts off nuking the first Onyx, and then putting Hitmonchan to sleep before finishing her off with a few Mega Drains. Hitmonlee can't really do anything to Clarine either, but I let Nime one-shot him with a Psychic. Nime wrecks the incoming Onyx and then Machamp, who I don't actually think has any way of hitting a Ghost type. Easily the easiest Elite Four member, but the next one's going to be rough. Agatha's the Ghost Elite Four member, but it's probably better to think of her as the Poison one since all of her Pokemon are Poison types. We don't have any ground attacks, so Nime's Psychic is our only option. However, I decided to go for a more wild strategy. Dux won't put in much work into Lance or Blue, so I let Juno hit the classic Thunder Wave and Sand Attack strategy she'd use to help Roy, but this time it's for Dux. Dux hits a couple of dances and an agility, but Agatha switches her Pokemon and Dux takes down Golbat. Agatha does it again, and Dux crits Haunter, but it survives and hits a big Nightshade before going down to another fly. Dux flies on the Gengar, nearly one-shotting it, but luckily it uses Dream Eater and not a useful move so we can get the kill. Unfortunately, Dux can't secure the one-shot on her level 58 Arbok and goes down swinging. Juno comes in to finish the job against Arbok, and then hits a Thunder Wave on her level 60 Gengar, and goes for the classic Sand Attack cheese. Once sanded up, Nime comes in to finish the job. 2 fights to go, and we have 5 Pokemon left. Dux's sacrifice will not be in vain. Against Lance, Juno leads off to one-shot his Gyarados with a Thunderbolt. Dragonair comes in next, and here's a funny part about this fight. Lance is smart AI, which means he wants to use super effective moves on her Ghost Poison type Nime. Agility is technically a Psychic move, so his Dragon Pokemon will just spam Agility relentlessly against our Poison types and never attack. We can take our sweet time chipping them down slowly with Clarine in order to save PP. Aerodactyl is a different story though, and after a sleep, Nime comes back in for a Thunder and a Psychic. Last is Dragonite, and despite the level difference, it slowly goes down the chip damage thanks to it not knowing how to actually attack. Cool game, Game Freak. With just a champion left, I go for the insane insurance policy of teaching Nime the Explosion TM. I don't want to use it, but if necessary, we will. I also decided to teach Yoder Toxic. I don't know if it'll help, but it's better than Horn Attack for sure. Against Blue, we start off with Juno versus Pidgeot for like the millionth time, and it goes just about as you expect. Unfortunately, Alakazam is next, but Juno outspeeds and hits a Thunder Wave. We don't get the full paralysis, and Alakazam hits the critical Psychic, one-shotting Juno. Percival comes in for some body slams, but Alakazam recovers a few times and puts up a fight with a critical Psybeam, nearly one-shotting Percival. But he does manage to survive and takes him down, along with one-shotting Blue's Rhydon with Surf. Blue apparently finally managed to evolve Growlithe into Arcanine, and the speedy Arcanine takes down Percival after barely surviving a Surf. Yoder resists everything Arcanine could throw at him, so he comes in for the cleanup. The Grass-type Executor seems like a scary matchup for the Rock-Water Yoder, but for some reason, Executor has 3 moves and no Grass attacks. Yoder manages to hit the Freeze with Blizzard, which is huge because Freeze is permanent in Gen 1. Since Executor is frozen, I take this opportunity to withdraw 5 times to stack 5 badge boosts for other stats before finishing the job with a couple Blizzards. Blue's Blastoise is 20 levels above Yoder, but for some reason it just wants to use Withdraw for like 4 turns while we chip him down with Blizzards. Eventually it does decide to attack, but it's way too late and Yoder can just finish the job with Surf, winning us the run on our first attempt despite the level disadvantage and avenging all of our fallen comrades. Sure, we had to abuse a few glitches, but hey, when in Rome, do as the Romans do, right? Gen 1's a glitchy game, it's part of the experience, and so just let the badge boost abuse rip. Thanks for watching this long. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, Swords Dance, a Hyper Beam, all that good stuff, you know? More Pokemon content is on the deck, including the next hardcore Nuzlocke. Bye.